Hey everybody, welcome to the video. Let's go over the Quaker State 400 at Kentucky Speedway on Sunday, July 12th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button because I'm going to be here all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players. And I cover other sports as well. We have MLB and NBA coming back very soon, so I'm excited about that. I'm sure you guys are as well. And I will be doing daily uploads for those sports. So if you're going to come back to the channel each and every single week or every single day, you might as well hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. And looking at my YouTube analytics, I know that 60% of the people watching these videos have not yet subscribed, so if you haven't already, it is much appreciated. And if you want to follow me over on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPennell16. You can follow me over on IG at CPenn16. And if you want to support my content over on Patreon, that's always much appreciated. We have over 300 members now, which is absolutely incredible. Never thought it would get that big. So I do appreciate each and every single one of you that do support my content over on Patreon. For anyone new that's interested, you can hit the link in the description below. It'll take you to my Patreon page. It just tells you everything. You get access to the projections, the power rankings, the green flag speed cheat sheet, heat map cheat sheet, all that good stuff, the Discord chat, my GBP exposures, all that fun stuff, previous optimal lineups. It's all there. So if you're interested, hit the link in the description below. If you're not, that's fine. Let's get into the preview of this race. And as always, I forgot to mention the live stream is going to be on Sunday. Since the race is at 2:30 instead of around 3 or 4, I think it's going to have to be at 11 a.m. instead of 12. So I will tweet out the exact time for you guys when the time comes and also have it posted on YouTube. But just for right now, plan on it being at around 11 a.m. Eastern. But anyway, the preview. So this is the Quaker State 400. There's your outline of the track. This is Kentucky Speedway. It's at a large oval. It's 1.5 miles in length. It's one of those 1.5 mile cookie cutter tracks. Nothing too special here. Roster construction is not going to be too crazy either. We're looking at 267 laps, which means there's about 200 Dominator points available, which means Dominators are going to be a little bit more important than they had the past couple of weeks. I know at Pocono, we had around 130 to 140 laps the two races we had at Pocono for the doubleheader. Then last weekend at Indy, we had 160 laps. So Dominator points were not that important. There was around 100 Dominator points available, which is not a lot. But this week with 200, Dominator points are going to be important. We're going to have to nail our Dominators because if we don't, our lineups are going to be pretty awful. So we have to get our Dominators locked in. But I think I have a good idea of guys we can target this week. And also one thing of note is that this track was repaved in 2016. So if you're looking at data prior to that, it's probably not the best idea. So look at data after the fact that it was paved, which is what we're going to be doing on the spreadsheet. So I think that's about it. Nothing too special here. We're probably looking at 2 to 3 Dominator builds. You could the pricing, I don't really think you can squeeze in 4. So we're looking at 2 to 3 Dominator builds this week because there's not really that super cheap Dominators like we've had. Although there is some guys that could potentially dominate that are really cheap, but for the most part, 2 to 3 Dominator builds are the way to go at Kentucky, mixed in with some place differential guys and also guys that can finish high. So let's get into the driver by driver portion of this video. So I should always mention, these are not my most polished thoughts. I know our polished thoughts will be on Patreon in the article and all the extra stuff. This is pretty much my first rundown through the slate, doing it with you guys. I mean, I looked at it last night, so I've been able to analyze the slate, but this is really my first time going through the entire slate and getting words out. So, but my first initial thoughts here is that DK did a pretty good job on pricing. I think they did well with Kevin Harvick. I think they did good with most of the Dominators. There was a couple of guys I think are a bit too cheap, and like Truex and Brad Keselowski, but we'll talk about those guys soon. And we also have Michael McDowell still way too cheap, but we'll talk through it. I think they did a good job pricing Eric Jones and Tyler Reddick. And yeah, but there's a couple of guys I do think are mispriced, and we will talk about them, but let's pretty much just go driver by driver here. So up top, we have Kevin Harvick. He comes in at 11,600. He is starting third. And look, he's the NASCAR points leader right now for a reason. He has been so good this year. He's pretty much ranking first in every single category for season stats, and he's just been an absolute monster. He's a contender pretty much every single race. If we're looking at his numbers at Kentucky, those are good too. I mean, there's just nothing bad I can say about Kevin Harvick this week. Numbers are good, 5.6 average running position at Kentucky, which I believe is third best, only behind Martin Truex and Kyle Busch. Now, I will mention, a lot of these drivers' numbers aren't going to look as good overall as Truex and Kyle Busch because they have just been absolute monsters here recently, but still, drivers have been pretty good here, as in Kevin Harvick. He's got a good driver rating. He's got 1 top 5, 3 top 10s. He's got a good amount of laps led. I think he's got the third most laps led in the third most fast laps, only behind Truex and Kyle Busch, who have been pretty much the class of the field here at Kentucky. If we're looking at recent track type form, These are 1.5 mile tracks, the last 10 races. Kevin Harvick averaging the most DraftKings points per race at 62, average running position of 8.9, which is the best drive rating of 104.8, 2 wins, which is the second most, only behind Denny Hamlin, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s, the most laps led, the most fast laps. If we're looking at this season's 1.5 mile track statistics, Kevin Harvick, again, the most DraftKings points per race, average running position of 8.2, which I believe is third best, only behind Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, who have been really the best at 1.5 mile tracks this season. Just overall, they've been really good at these tracks. But yeah, Kevin Harvick, he has a win, the most laps led, the third most fast laps. He's an awesome play. Now, the only problem with Kevin Harvick this week is if he doesn't get up front and dominate, he's not going to make the optimal lineup. And the problem is, I usually don't think Kevin Harvick's going to have a tough time getting up front, but the front row, he's right behind the front row, and that's front row is Kyle Busch and Joey Logano. Those are two really good drivers and two really good cars. Now, I know Kyle Busch hasn't really been the greatest this season, but he's still top 5 in average green flag speed, and it's not going to be an easy task for Kevin Harvick just to leap over Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. So there's a little bit of concern there, but if on the restart Kevin Harvick can get the second and his just overall power of the season gets past Kyle Busch, assuming Kyle Busch is the one who gets the lead early, I could see Harvick getting the lead and keeping it for a while, and that's one thing, but it's not a slam dunk that Kevin Harvick gets in front early. So there is the potential if things shake out not his way on pit road, he doesn't get up front this race. And 11,600, you absolutely need that to happen. And the PD upside is limited. He has been starting near the back of this, starting top 12, so it has made him a bit safer. But starting third, it can be a little bit riskier. So that's the only caution I have with Kevin Harvick. Everything besides that, I mean, he should be an awesome play. So yes, we like Kevin Harvick. He's been so good this season. He's top 5 in average green flag speed. I believe he's 4th at the 1.5 mile tracks this season. I believe he is 1st or 2nd since the NASCAR restart on May 17th. So Kevin Harvick, he's an awesome play. He's really expensive. The PD upside's limited. He's got 2 good cars in front of him, but there's a good chance he can get up front and dominate once again, which he's shown to do many, many times so far this season. Now, going down to Christopher Bell, who once again has the worst luck when starting random draw. He is now starting 34th. He started 36th, 35th, or 34th, it seems like, every single week for a long time, ever since we've been doing this random draw. And it makes him playable. The thing is, I say this every time, but I have a hard time playing Christopher Bell over guys like Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Busch. It's just a hard thing to do. Now, it worked out for you last week, but that was due to Denny Hamlin wrecking. The 2 best plays up top were Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick. That was going to be the optimal lineup, those 2 again. But then Denny Hamlin, with I believe 6 laps to go or right around there, he blew a tire, crashed out of the lead, ended up finishing 28th, scores 9 points. And since Denny Hamlin crashed, the next guy in that price range was Christopher Bell, who was, I believe, in the top 15, and he ended up making the optimal lineup. That's just how it goes sometimes. But if you guys played Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, you were on the right side for the majority of the race, and that's what should have been the optimal lineup. But hey, things happen. It's NASCAR. So Christopher Bell, he's interesting. It's just, again, I can't justify paying that much for him when I can get a guy that like Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch that can dominate this race. Dominator points weren't as important at Pocono and Indy. This time, Dominator points are more important. So let's say Hamlin and Chase Elliott are the 2 dominators this race. They're going to be much better plays than Christopher Bell as long as they don't wreck out of the race. So that's my stance on Christopher Bell. I mean, he's fine. He can get you around 50 points pretty easily if he cracks the top 15, which is something he's done a few times so far this season. But if we're looking at his numbers at 1.5 mile tracks this year, they're not that great. He's got an average finish of 18, average running position of 18, 1 top 10, 2 top 15s, only 3 top 20s, no laps led, 1.4 fast laps. So I just have a hard time playing a guy I think is probably going to finish around 15th over guys that can dominate the race. So you guys know my stance on Christopher Bell. I'm not a big fan of paying that much for him. Has it worked out a couple of times? Yeah, for sure. But I'll just be honest, he's my least favorite play in this tier. Just give me the guys that can dominate this race. Give me the faster cars this season. So, again, you guys know where I stand. If you disagree, that's fine, but I just can't do it. I mean, I'm not saying to full fade him. You can throw him in some lineups. It's just, I want the dominators up here. So going down to Denny Hamlin, he's 10,900. He is starting 12th. He drew the best starting spot from a DFS perspective for the guy starting in the top 12. He drew the worst spot for guys in real life, but this makes him a pretty good play. He's been pretty good at Kentucky the past 4 races, averaging 43.9 DraftKings points per race, which I think is the 4th best. He's got an average finish of 10, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s. And look, if we're looking at 1.5 mile tracks the past 10 races, he's been one of the best. He's averaging 50.8 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 10.5. He has the most wins at 3, 6 top 5s, which again is the most out of anybody. 60% of the time he's been inside the top 10. The past 10 races at 1.5 mile tracks. He's got the second most laps led. He's got a good amount of fast laps. I think Denny Hamlin's a fine play if we're looking at his numbers this season at 1.5 miles. He's got a win, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, some of the most laps led per race. I mean, all the numbers check out. He offers us some PD upside. He's been on fire recently, besides wrecking out of the last race. So Denny Hamlin, starting 12th, 10,900, I think he's a pretty solid play. Now, is he my most favorite dominator? Probably not, but still, starting 12th, it would not surprise me if Denny Hamlin gets up front. It's just been something he's been doing recently. I'm going to ride the hot hand here, even though his results didn't look great last race because he wrecked. But, I mean, he had the best car. So, yeah, Denny Hamlin, he's a good option starting 12th. And he's pretty safe, too. And he's also not the most expensive guy here, which honestly is a case to be. So, I do like Denny Hamlin. Going down to Chase Elliott, he's 10,500. He's starting 8th. Now, his numbers at Kentucky don't look that great. But if we're looking at his numbers this season at 1.5 mile tracks, he's been absolutely elite. And really, him and Ryan Blaney have had the 2 fastest cars this season at the intermediate tracks. And let's just take a look at the past 10 races at 1.5 miles for Chase Elliott. Average finish of 11.3, averaging nearly 50 DraftKings points per race. One of the best drive ratings, one of the best average running positions. 4 top 5s, has a win. But if we're looking at 2020 specifically, these numbers are excellent. It's been him and Ryan Blaney with the 2 best cars at 1.5 miles in terms of average green flag speed. Sorry, someone's calling me. But, yeah, Chase Elliott's number 1 in green flag speed. I think he's like at, I want to say it's like 4.1 or something like that. And Ryan Blaney's like at 4.2. I mean, they've just been so fast this season. Chase Elliott's number 1 in average green flag speed overall. And I see no reason not to want to play him this week. Starting 8th, he offers you a little bit of PD upside. He's also the second cheapest guy in this price range, which I guess, I mean, you can make a case for the other guys being more expensive, but he's a decent value this week. Offers you a little bit of PD upside, and he seems to be in contention every single week. Last week at Indy, he was, I think, in 3rd place. Then for some reason, he pit. I mean, him and his crew chief had a little, not disagreement, but they were a little confused on who was in the lead. So it kind of screwed his day out of a good finish, but he was leading laps too, and look, he's been fast all season, and again, at 2020, 1.5 mile tracks, he's got the best drive rating of 115, second best average running position right behind Ryan Blaney, average finish of 8, averaging 61 DraftKings points per race, has the most fast laps, 3rd most laps led. So Chase Elliott, I like him a lot. I think he's an excellent play, and look, I like a lot of dominators this week, so I think this is a good week to mix and match. If you're building one lineup this week, I'd have a hard time picking who it's going to be. I mean, I'll figure it out later on in the week, or this weekend, I should say, but it's a good week to mix and match because, like, literally all these guys are good plays. Harvick, Hamlin, Elliott, Busch, Blaney, Logano, Truex, Keselowski. I mean, any of these guys can get up front and dominate. So I think it's a good mix and match week, and there's a lot of good mid-range and cheap guys. So I'm liking this week, especially from a 150 lineup build point of view. I think there's a lot of good ways you could differentiate. So yeah, I like Chase Elliott. Going down to Kyle Busch. He's on the pole this week, which is going to be pretty interesting. I've been kind of waiting for Kyle Busch to be on the pole. I wrote it in my preview article. If Kyle Busch is going to dominate a race this season, he's going to probably have to draw the pole. And what do you know? He draws the pole. And look, he's got the easiest path to dominating. Now, I don't know when the competition caution lap is going to be yet, but there's a good chance Kyle Busch could lead a good chunk of this first stage. And if he does and contends for a top 5, he could hit the optimal. The only problem is there's a lot of good cars right around him. We have Kevin Harvick right behind him, or whatever lane he decides to choose. And we also have Joey Logano on the front row with them. And those 2 cars have been better so far than him this season. But, I mean, he's on the pole. Kyle Busch is super good at Kentucky. If we're looking at his recent track history here, he's averaging 66.5 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 5.8, average running position of 4.6, which is the best. He has 3 top 5s, second best drive rating of 121.1. He's got 46 laps led per race, 34 fast laps, which is second best, only behind Martin Truex. So Kyle Busch, he's starting on the pole. He's 10,100. He's the cheapest guy in this 10K range. He's going to be pretty popular, and I think it's deservedly so because, look, I've been playing Kyle Busch when he starts 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. So now that he's on the pole, I don't really see a reason why I wouldn't say to not play him. Now, he's actually entered the top 5 in average green flag speed so far this season, so he has been getting faster. And the one thing, though, I don't like is that he's top 5 in average green flag speed overall, but if we're looking at 1.5 mile tracks, he's actually 10th in that category. He's not been that fast at these types of tracks, and you guys are going to see that in the 1.5 mile tracks in the 2020 statistics. But if we're looking at the past 10 races at these types, I mean, the numbers are going to check out. It's Kyle Busch. He's pretty much good everywhere. It's just this season he has been struggling. As you can see, he's averaging 33.7 DraftKings points per race in 2020. But if we're looking at the track type form, he's averaging around 50. So you can just see he has been struggling at these types of tracks so far this season and just overall. Average finish of 11.4, no wins, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, only a 1.8 lap led per race at these types of tracks. So it's been a struggle for Kyle Busch, but he's on the pole. Look, his team's got to get it together. They got to get a win. They got to get some playoff points. So I could see this being a Kyle Busch week. And starting on the pole, I do have interest. I like his price tag. He's going to be very popular. And if you want to match the field on the ownership, I get it. If you want to go underweight and think he loses the lead early, that's another way to go. But I think Kyle Busch should have a good showing this week. And he's going to want to hold that lead. I mean, he's not had the lead for a long time this season. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, during a race, he has not held the lead for a while. So I think he's going to want to make a statement here. So, yes, on the pole, I do like Kyle Busch. Even though he has been a little bit slower this season, it's going to happen eventually. And on the pole, it's going to be his best chance to do it. Going down to the 9K tier, we have Ryan Blaney at 9,800. And I think he's one of my favorite plays in the entire slate this week. Heading into the weekend, I wrote up Ryan Blaney in my preview article. He's one of my favorite sleepers heading into the week to win this race. Him and Chase Elliott have been super, super good at 1.5 mile tracks this year. And I mean, his numbers at Kentucky are fine, but I'm more interested in the track type form in the 2020 1.5 mile track history. So if we're looking at the track type form, he's got one of the best average running positions of 9.5, one of the best driver ratings. I think he's actually got the second best, only behind Kevin Harvick. 4 top 5s. I mean, the numbers are good. He's led laps. Now, if we're looking at 2020 specifically, he's averaging 61.5 DraftKings points per race, which is second best, only behind Kevin Harvick. He's got the best average finish of 5, the best average running position of 6.1, the second best driver rating, only behind Chase Elliott of 111.5. No wins, but 4 top 5s, which is actually the most this season. 4 top 10s. He's getting laps led. He's getting fast laps. He's averaging 8.8 place differential spots per race, which I actually think is the best out of any of these big name drivers, and actually the best out of anyone on the slate. So I like Ryan Blaney a ton. He's starting 11th. He's below 10K, which honestly, he should be a 10K and plus driver here. So I like Ryan Blaney a lot. I think he's going to be decently popular because he does offer some PD upside, and the price is pretty nice, but I like him a lot. And he screwed us last weekend because, look, he got his right side smashed in, and then he got wrecked out. I forget exactly when exactly it happened, but it was not a good race if you played Ryan Blaney, but it really wasn't his fault. So 9,800, I like him a lot. So Ryan Blaney, I feel just fine firing him up this weekend. Joey Logano, he's 9,600. He's starting second, and if you don't believe in Kyle Busch, you should probably play Joey Logano if you think he's going to win out in the restart. I personally don't think that's going to be the case. I think Kyle Busch will keep the lead here. Now, if he doesn't keep the lead here, there's going to be a lot of mad people in DFS, so I think you should hedge yourself and play some Joey Logano just in case because, look, we don't have any practice times, and if Kyle Busch screws up the restart, which Busch is usually good in restarts, but if he happens to screw it up, Logano could take the lead early or Kevin Harvick, and if Kyle Busch doesn't lead any laps starting first, it's going to be a long day for you guys that played him in DFS, so it's always good to hedge yourself a little bit, but I think Logano is interesting. He's been fine at Kentucky, but he is pretty good at 1.5 mile tracks, averaging nearly 45 DraftKings points per race. One of the best average running positions ever finished. You guys get the idea. He's pretty good here at 1.5 miles. He's got a win, 3 top 5s. He leads laps. If we're looking at this season, averaging 40 DraftKings points per race, has a win, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, averaging actually some of the most laps led per race. So Logano's fine in tournaments. You don't touch him in cash games because, again, he's going to need laps to really pay off his price tag at 9,600 because there's no PD upside. And even really a top 5 finish probably won't get the job done because there's going to be some better PD plays, and plus the guys that are dominating the race are going to obviously outscore him because there's 200 dominator points available. So I'm not too into Joey Logano this weekend, but I wouldn't mind playing a little bit just in case he happens to beat Kyle Busch out early, and if he stays up front, there you go. So going down to Clint Bowyer, he's 9,400. I got to be honest, don't really like Clint Bowyer too much this week. He hasn't been great at the 1.5 mile tracks. At Kentucky, he's been okay. Average finish of 13.5, running position of 14.5. No top 5s, though, 1 top 10. And at 9,400, starting 15th. It just doesn't get me too excited. If he was starting in the 20s, I'd be a little bit more interested, but I just think there's better plays. I mean, you got Truex right below him. You got Keselowski right below him. Guys I think can lead laps this race. Then you got Logano and Blaney. Other guys I think are going to lead laps this race, or potentially could lead laps. So Clint Bowyer is kind of the odd man out in this 9K range. If you're looking at his numbers at 1.5 mile tracks, they're not that great either. Only 1 top 5 the past 10 races, 3 top 10s. Average finish of 20 this season at 1.5 miles. Average running position of 17.5. No top 5s, no top 10s, only two top 15s. So not that excited about Clint Boyer this weekend. Not that excited. So I mean, you could sprinkle him in, but again, he would not be a core play for me. We're going down to Martin Truex Jr. He's 9,200 starting 9th. This is probably one of my favorite plays on the slate because the pricing doesn't make any sense. He's a 10K plus kind of driver. I don't know if they priced him this low just because he blew up at Indy and he did awful. I think he scored negative 24. But look, he's historically struggles at Indy, and again, he had an issue which he really couldn't control. But at 1.5 mile tracks, he is elite. He's one of the best drivers, and if we're looking at his numbers at Kentucky, he's been the guy you've wanted to play. He's averaging 85 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 7.8, average running position of 5.4, drive rating of 124.3, 2 wins, 2 top 5s, averaging 93 laps led per race, 54.5 fast laps. Truex has been the man here. If we're looking at 1.5 mile tracks the past 10 races, the numbers all check out. I could read you guys these numbers, but you guys get the idea. Truex is pretty good at these. And if you're looking at 2020, averaging 54 DraftKings points per race at one of the best average running positions. No wins, though. 1 top 5 with 3 top 10s. Got a good amount of laps led, good amount of fast laps. I like Truex this week. This price is ridiculous. You could easily pair him with a guy like Kyle Busch because you could get Kyle Busch as the early leader. Then if later on you think Truex comes in and dominates, he's starting 9th. That works out too. So if you want to make that your favorite pairing, I have no problem with that. They've been the 2 best drivers at Kentucky. And the thing is, Truex has been really fast this season at 1.5 mile tracks. If you look at overall, I believe he's outside the top 10, or he's around 10th for average green flag speed overall, and since the restart. But if you look at 1.5 mile tracks specifically this season, he ranks 3rd, only behind Blaney and Chase Elliott. So I like Truex a lot. He's way too cheap. I do expect him to be pretty popular just because of that price tag, and I think it's for a good reason. I really like him a lot. Now going down to Brad Keselowski, he comes in at 9K. He is starting 6th, and overall, if we're looking prior to 2016, he's been very, very good at Kentucky. But one of the races recently, he did have an incident with engine issues, which is kind of kill his numbers here. Didn't give him the best. It's going to ruin his averages just a little bit, but it's still been a good track for him. He's only averaging 30 DraftKings points per race, but again, looking past that a little bit. He does have a win here, 2 top 5s, one of the better average driver ratings. He's led a lot of laps here, averaging 29 laps led per race. I think Keselowski's fine. Now, at the 1.5 mile tracks, the past 10 races, the numbers don't look too outstanding, but so far this season, he's been great. And if we're looking at the numbers, he's got an average finish of 6.8, nearly 50 DraftKings points per race, has a win, 4 top 10s, 1 top 5. At 9K, he just seems a bit too cheap. Now, even though he's not my favorite dominator player in the world this weekend, I'm still going to play some of them just because of that price tag. And he's been top 5 in average green flag speed in every category this year, so even he's not my favorite, but starting 6, 9K, a guy that can dominate, I do like Brad Keselowski. So that's pretty much it for the dominators. I mean, below 9K, you don't really see anyone that can dominate this race besides a couple of guys in the 7K range that could potentially get up front, but not as likely. But we will talk about them. And I think you guys probably know one guy I'm going to be talking about, but we'll get there. So anyway, starting with this 8K tier, we have Jimmy Johnson at 8,800. He is back from getting the Rona, which is good. It was a very fast turnaround for him, and it's nice to see him back. And he's starting 20th. Now, the thing is, Jimmy Johnson's usually really expensive on DraftKings, and now that he's starting 20th, they really didn't do much with his price. 8,800. Not sure why he's this cheap, but I don't mind him this weekend. And I know if you're looking at his recent track history here at Kentucky, it's pretty awful. Only averaging 1.6 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 29, 1 top 15, and that's it. But recently at 1.5 mile tracks, it's been pretty good for Jimmy Johnson. Average finish of 12.4, running position of 13.2, 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s. And if we're looking at 2020 specifically, the numbers are actually even almost better. Averaging nearly 50 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 8.2, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, averaging 8.6 place differential spots per race. He usually doesn't start this far back either, so I think Jimmy Johnson's a fine player. We're getting a good price tag on him. He's been fast this season at these types of tracks. Despite the track history, I still think he's fine. So if he could contend for a top 10, I do like some Jimmy Johnson this weekend. And looking at his teammate William Byron, he's 8,600. He is starting 21st. And again, he doesn't have the best track history here, but it's only a 2-race sample size. So I really don't care too much about that because the sample size is too small. So if we're looking at 1.5 mile tracks, the past 10 races, average running position of 12.7, 1 top 5, 4 top 10s, picking up some fast laps as well, a pretty decent driver rating. This season, he's got an average running position of 15.3, Only one top 10 though and two top 15s, but I still think he's going to be fine. He's had a fast car this season, starting 21st. He should be able to move up some spots. Now there is some guys I like being at price below him, like Eric Jones and Tyler Reddick a bit more, but I do think he's an interesting tournament pivot off of those guys, and actually Jimmy Johnson too. I think Eric Jones and Tyler Reddick will be higher owned than those two, which makes them a little bit better in tournaments, but I think all four of these guys are going to be good plays. So anyway, let's get to Eric Jones. I know a lot of you probably hate Eric Jones, and you're probably tired of me recommending Eric Jones every single week, because I think I do recommend him pretty much every single week, but the thing is, he runs well pretty much every race. He just happens to wreck or get wrecked into. It's not really his fault most of the time, but if we're looking at his recent performances at Homestead, Atlanta, Pocono, Indy, I'm probably forgetting another race, but he was a top 5, top 10 contender in those races. And then he has issues, but it's not like he's not been running well. It's not like he's been like running in the back and then he has an issue and that what kills his day. He's been running very, very well, and he looks like a really good DFS play pretty much every single time, but something happens to him, and we just can't control that. But starting 16th at 8,400, I think this is going to keep some people off of him, starting 16th instead of in the 20s. And that's fine with me. And he got a price bump as well, which again, I think will keep people off of him. But I really like Eric Jones this week, and if he's not going to be that popular, he's one of my favorite tournament plays because he's been super good at Kentucky. He only has a 3-race sample size, but he's averaging the third most DraftKings points per race at 51.1, the best average finish of 5.3, average running position of 9.7, 3 top 10s, 1 top 5, averaging 7 place differential spots per race. And I really like Eric Jones this weekend. He's one of my favorite plays, if we're being honest, which it's always scary to say Eric Jones is one of your favorite plays, but he's a legit top 5 contender here. And if we're looking at his numbers at 1.5 mile tracks the past 10 races, he's got an average running position of 13.5, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 6 top 15s, getting some fast laps as well. If we're looking at the 2020 1.5 mile tracks, his numbers aren't going to look as pretty because he's had some incidents, again, which have killed his day. But I am willing to look past that. Eric Jones has been super good at Kentucky. I don't see why that would change. So I like him. Again, some of you probably don't agree, and you're probably tired of playing him. I've had a couple of people tell me they're never playing Eric Jones again, which I get, but in DFS, you have to have a short memory. Things change, and if you said that Sunday at Pocono because he wrecked out on Saturday, you were probably upset because he scored nearly 80 DraftKings points. So I do like Jones. He's not going to be the most chalky guy on the slate this time around because of the pricing and where he's starting and what he did last Sunday, but I still like him. I like Eric Jones quite a bit. Tyler Reddick, he's starting 24th. He's 8,200. I expect him to be pretty popular on the slate because if we're looking at his 1.5 mile track history this season, it's actually really, really good. So let's just scroll to there because he's a rookie, so we only have the 1.5 mile tracks for 2020. He's averaging nearly 45 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 12.2, average running position of 11.9, which is excellent. Now, these numbers are boosted a little bit from Homestead when he scored nearly 80 DraftKings points, which was absolutely insane. He won't do that again, but he's still a pretty good play in my opinion. I mean, at the 1.5 miles this season, he's 5 for 5 and getting top 20s, 3 top 15s, 2 top 10s, has that top 5 that was at Homestead. So Tyler Reddick, I think he's a pretty good option. I mean, he's been super fast this season for the most part, so I do like Tyler Reddick. Going down to Matt Kenseth, he comes in at 8,000, and he ran really well the past 3 races. At Pocono, he was a top 15 car both times, and then last weekend at Indy, he almost won the race. Like, he was looking very, very good, and the thing is, he's been good at Indy in his career, and it actually translated to the race. Like, if we're looking at statistics, most weeks, Matt Kenseth does grade out well at most racetracks, but the situation's changed. He's on the 42 car now, not on the 20 car with Joe Gibbs, and he was retired, he came back, but past 3 races, he's looked pretty good, which is actually pretty encouraging for Matt Kenseth. Now, if we're looking at his history at Kentucky, he's got an average running position of 10, average finish of 14.7, 3 top 20s. This season at the 1.5 mile tracks, though, it's not been pretty good for him at all. He's only averaging 18 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 22.5, running position of 24, driver rating of 62.1, only 1 top 20. So I'm really not that into Matt Kenseth this week, but I will say it's been encouraging to see him run well the past 3 races. And it's pretty cool to see just because he's Matt Kenseth. But I'd rather play everyone else in this AK range than Matt Kenseth. So I don't really like him this week that much. I mean, he's fine in tournaments because I think he's going to be low owned, but give me Reddick, give me Jones, Byron Johnson, for being honest. And I like the guys priced below him as well better. So, but going down to the 7K range, we have Matthew DiBenedetto, who could potentially be a sneaky play this weekend, but really not that interested. He's going to have a hard time paying off his salary. I mean, well, not like he's priced high, but he's starting 10th, and if we're being honest, he's probably going to finish anywhere from 10th to 15th, and I think there's better guys on the slate, but he's going to be sneaky because, again, if we're looking at his recent track history, it's going to look pretty bad, but again, new equipment this year, his numbers look pretty good. So if we're looking past the recent track history, which we will, now that he's in the 21 car, so if we're looking at the 2020 statistics at 1.5 mile tracks, MDB's got an average running position of 14.9. He's got a top 5, 1 top 10, 4 top 20s, 2 top 15s. Thing is, though, he's just starting pretty high up, starting 10th, so I really can't see myself playing too much MDB, if any. So, I mean, you could sprinkle him in just because he's been running pretty well this year, but I'd prefer the 3 guys priced below him, and I'll talk about them now, I guess, because MDB is just not really someone on my radar this weekend. But Kurt Busch, he's starting 7th, and Kentucky's been a pretty good track for Kurt Busch, for being honest. I'll scroll down for you guys. And he's only 7,600. I think we're getting a really good price tag on him, and he could be a sleeper to potentially get up front lead laps in this race, or at least contend for a top 5. And at 7,600, he really doesn't have to do much this week to pay off his price tag. He really needs to do what Eric Almirola did last weekend. So at Kentucky, he's averaging 44.4 DraftKings points per race. Average finish of 10.3. Has a win. He won here last year over his brother Kyle Busch. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, averaging 24 laps led per race at Kentucky. It's been a really good track for him. And if we're looking at his numbers at 1.5 mile tracks recently, the past 10 races, he's actually been one of the best. And he actually has the best average finish of 9.7, averaging 45 DraftKings points per race, 7 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and a win. I mean, Kurt Busch has been pretty good at these 1.5 mile tracks. So I am interested in him. I think the price tag is very nice on Kurt. Now, if we're looking at this season, he's got an average finish of 12.2, 3 top 10s, 1 top 5. So Kurt Busch, even though he's starting 7th, there's not much room for PD upside, but I like the price. It's been a good track for him. He's been pretty consistent this season. So I like Kurt Busch. I think I don't know if he's going to be sneaky, but he could be a potential sneaky play. People are going to overlook him just because he's starting 7th, but love that price tag on Kurt Busch. But one of my favorite sneakier plays of the weekend is going to be Alex Bowman at 7,400. And again, I don't know what ownership's going to be yet. I'll have a better idea on that heading into the weekend. But people, I feel like, are not going to want to play Alex Bowman starting 5th. But he's been screwing a lot of people this year. Like, he's had some races where he's ran well and led laps, but for the most part, he seems to have an incident which crushes his average finish. Like, if we're looking at his 2020 statistics at 1.5 mile tracks, he's got an average finish of 18.8, which sucks. But he's got an average running position of 9.3, so that just goes to show you he's been having a lot of bad luck this season. But looking at his track history here, it's awful, which, again, people love looking at track history based on the ownership we see in slates this season. Like, if a guy's got good track history, he's going to be pretty high owned, and Alex Bowman's got some of the worst track history here out of anybody, only averaging 9.1 DraftKings points per race, no top 15s, only 1 top 20 in 4 races. But if we're looking at his numbers at these types of tracks, he's been one of the best drivers. He's averaging nearly 45 DraftKings points per race, one of the best average running positions, has a win, 2 top 5s, averaging 32.1 laps led per race, which is the 3rd best, only behind Hamlin and Kevin Harvick. He has 17.5 fast laps, which again is in the top 5. And if we're looking at 2020 statistics, he's actually 2nd in laps led and I believe 4th in fast laps. So Alex Bowman, he's starting 5th. He's had a fast car this season. If he can get up front at 7,400, he's going to be one of the best plays in the slate. Now, it's not that likely because he's got Kevin Harvick in front of him. He's got Eric Almirola, which I think he could get around Eric Almirola, but you got Logano and Kyle Busch, so the path isn't as easy, but it could happen. He's been good at these types of tracks, and I think he's a pretty good tournament play, so I don't mind Alex Bowman. I really like the price, too, at 7,400. That's really cheap. I wrote my preview article that Bowman's creeping towards the 7K price range, and if he does, I mean, he's an excellent value, and, well, now he's 7,400, so I got to be true to my word. I think he's an excellent value here. Going down to Eric Almirola, he's 7,300. He's starting 4th, and he's finished in the top 5. I believe the past 5 races, you would think he would get a price bump, but really not the case. He's been running really well, and Kentucky's actually been a good track for him. The past 3 races at Kentucky, he's got an average finish of 14, running position of 12.3, 1 top 10, 2 top 15s. If you're looking at his track type form, I mean, the numbers check out. They've been pretty good. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. And if you're looking at 2020, 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 1 top 15 with 3 top 20s. Again, he's got to do more than a top 20 just to hit value at 7,300 because where he's starting. But the way he's been running recently, he's been racking up top 5s. Now, I don't think a top 5 is that likely, but if he can top 8, which I think's the potential's there. I mean, he's in good equipment. He's been running well. I mean, he could pay off his price tag at 7,300. So he's not someone you go crazy about with your ownership, but I do think Eric Almirola is in play. I will not be fading him, especially at that price tag. But I am expecting him to lose PD spots, just letting you guys know that. But if he can hang with the top 7, top 8, I think he'll be fine. Now looking at Stenhouse, he comes in at 7,100. If we look at his numbers at Kentucky, they have not been that pretty. But I think he's interesting just because he's been running pretty well at 1.5 mile tracks so far this season. The only real concern here is that he's starting 14th and his average finish here is 23, but he does have 2 top 15s, that would get the job done. Now, I don't expect him to be high owned, so he's only a tournament option, but if we're looking at 1.5 mile tracks this season, he's got an average finish of 13, averaging 42.7 DraftKings points per race, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, actually has a few laps, and averaging 8.6 place differential spots per race. He's a tournament option. Obviously not going to go there in cash games. He's starting 14th. He's a very risky driver because, I don't know, he tends to do some dumb stuff sometimes during the race, but he's fine in tournaments. He's been running well at these. He's okay, but not one of my favorite plays on the slate. Going down to Bubba Wallace, he is starting 18th. He comes in at 7K. He's been running pretty well this season. It's just I have a hard time playing him over some of these 6K drivers, and I'd much rather play some of these 7K drivers like Almirola, Bowman, Kurt Busch, even Stenhouse. So not that interested in Bubba Wallace. If we're looking at his numbers this season at the 1.5 mile tracks, he's got 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, but an average running position of 22.5, average finish at 23.2. I just think there's better plays in this slate, so I'm really not on Bubba this weekend, but I will give him credit that he has been running pretty well recently. Going down to the 6K tier, we have Cole Custer. He comes in at 6,900. And I say it pretty much every single week, but I just do not get the difference in price tag between him and Christopher Bell, because Cole Custer's been running really good this season. I mean, I shouldn't say really, really good this season, but he's had quite a few good races. And last weekend at Indy, I mean, he crushed. I mean, he did fantastic. And the thing is, they have very similar numbers this season. If we're looking at 2020 1.5 mile tracks for Cole Custer and Christopher Bell, Custer's got an average finish of 18.2. Christopher Bell's got an average finish of 18. Bell's got an average running position of 18. Custer's got an average running position of 22.4. A little bit further back, but still. And Custer's got 4 top 20s while Christopher Bell's got 3. I mean, numbers are pretty similar here, but yet they're priced 5 to 6K off of each other pretty much every single week, which I don't understand. Custer's in good equipment. He's in that Stewart-Haas equipment. Now, he did get a price bump, which kind of sucks because he was usually around that low 6K price range, so now we got to pay up a little bit for him, but this is where he should be priced, so it's not like an extreme value, but I still think he's a decent value. Realistically, he should contend for a top 15 here, which is about 15 spots. That'll get the job done at 6,900, so Cole Custer, I do like him. I'd rather play him than Ty Dillon. He's some better equipment, and I trust Custer, I think, more than Ty Dillon, so I do like Custer. He's fine. He's not the extreme value he used to be past few races, but he's still a good play, so do you like Custer? Going down to Ty Dillon, he comes in at 6,700. I still think this is a little bit too expensive for Ty. I mean, he's starting 33rd, which he's going to move up spots, but he's not been good at Kentucky. Average finish of 28.3, no top 20s, nothing, not even 1 top 20. We're looking at his numbers at 1.5 mile tracks recently. Average finish of 24.2, 1 top 15, 2 top 20s in 10 races. If we're looking at 2020 specifically, he's got 1 top 20, average running position 25.4. The numbers really aren't there for Ty Dillon. Give me Cole Custer. I'd rather play Austin Dillon as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So Ty Dillon, even though he's starting 33rd, he's really not on my radar this weekend. But someone I do like is Austin Dillon. He's starting 19th. Now, his numbers at Kentucky don't look fantastic. But let's look at his numbers at 1.5 mile tracks recently. Their numbers are pretty good for Austin Dillon. He's got averaging 30 DraftKings points per race, but he's got an average finish of 13.7, which is pretty good. Average running position of 14, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 7 top 15s, 8 top 20s. He's starting 19th at 6,500. I like him quite a bit here. And if we're looking at his 2020 statistics, he's got an average finish of 9 at these track types. 9. That's the best we've seen since Jimmy Johnson at 8,800. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race. Average running position of 12.5. 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s, 4 top 15s. I like Austin Dillon quite a bit here. Starting 19th, he should be a pretty good play. He's been running really well at these types of tracks. So, do like Dillon. Going down to Daniel Suarez, he comes in at 6,400, starting 37th. Now, his price did go up a little bit from last week because he did very well, mostly due to the wrecks, but he's starting 37th. He's okay. I mean, again, if you're looking at his recent track history here, you can't because he was in much better equipment, Stewart-Haas equipment in the 41 car. That's not the case anymore. So if we're looking at his recent track type statistics at 2020, he's got an average finish of 29.8, average running position of 29.8, That was driver rating of 40.8, no top 20s. I think this is what you're going to get from Daniel Suarez. I'm really not that interested in him. Now, the price tag's fine, but there's better plays below him, so I'm really not on Daniel Suarez. His car sucks. He's slow. He's driving a lawnmower out there, so I don't see a reason really to want to play Daniel Suarez this weekend. Ryan Preece, he's 6,300. He's starting 32nd. He broke our hearts last weekend. He was my highest owned driver last week, and he was the first guy to wreck, and he finished 40th, and it was on pit road, and it absolutely sucked. And the sad thing was, he was near the top 25 during the competition caution, so he was running really well, really quick, really fast. So, like, he got to the top 25 fast. I'm not saying his car was super fast, but that sucked. It really sucked. But he has one race here. He finished 21st. If we're looking at his track type form, average finish of 24, average running position of 22.5, one top 15, one top 20. This season, average running position of 22.7 at these types of tracks. He's starting 32nd. He's fine. I do like a couple of guys cheaper than him, but Priest is okay this week. Going down to Ryan Newman. He's 6,100. Now, I don't understand the price tag here. He's starting 23rd, and he's way too cheap in my opinion. I don't know if it's because what he did last week where he wrecked out, which when I was talking about guys that wrecked out earlier, I forgot Ryan Newman was one of the guys too, which sucked. But yeah, Newman, 23rd. He's pretty good at Kentucky. I mean, past 4 races, he's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 13.8. He has a top 5. He's got 2 top 10s. If we're looking at these types of tracks, numbers aren't fantastic, but they're respectable. Average finish of 20.1, 6 top 20s, 3 top 15s. We don't need much out of him at 6,100 starting 23rd. I mean, if all goes well for him, he should contend for a top 15 here, and that's going to get the job done at 6,100. So Ryan Newman, I expect him to be pretty popular this weekend, and I'll be part of that. I like him quite a bit. Going down to the 5K range, we have Chris Buescher. He's 5,900, starting 13th. I don't see why we would play Chris Buescher this weekend. He's starting way too high. These types of tracks, he does have 4 top 15s, 6 top 20s, but I just don't see a reason to want to play him over guys that are starting further back. I mean, it's pretty risky. He's a tournament option because, look, he has had 4 top 15s here the past, not here, but at 1.5 mile tracks the past 10 races, which is 40% of the time, but it's just going to be rough for him. He's got to hang. He can lose a couple of spots and still be fine, but it's just riskier in my opinion. I'd rather play McDowell, who's right below him at 5,700. He's starting 30th, and Michael McDowell, I just don't understand the price tag here. Like, he's been so good for us. Besides that one race he wrecked out at Pocono when he was starting 15th, he's been excellent, and he scored over 50 points again last Sunday, and he's just been running really, really well. Average finish here of 24, which isn't great, but this season, McDowell's been running pretty good. I mean, these types of tracks, past 10 races, he's got an average finish of 22.8. He's starting 30th, which we'll take, and if we're looking at this season, he's got an average running position of 24.7, average finish of 23.8, which isn't great, but still he's got 2 top 20s, and I think McDowell's going to be fine. He ran well at Homestead, which is another 1.5 mile track, starting 30th, 5,700, just as good as he's been running. He's going to be in play. I expect him to be very popular. For guys to fit in their multi-dominator lineups, you're going to have to go down to this 5K range, and I would expect Michael McDowell to be the chalky guy down here, and I agree with it. He's been running super well, and don't see why that would really change. So, I do like Michael McDowell. Going down to Corey LaJoie, he's 5,500. He's starting 27th. Not really on LaJoie here. Just give me Michael McDowell for 200 more. I think I'd prefer to play John Hunter Nemechek as well. He's been running pretty good at the 1.5 miles this season. So if we just compare those numbers, LaJoie's got an average finish of 23, average running position of 26.1, 2 top 20s. The numbers are okay. He's not a full fade by any means. If you want to sprinkle him in and get off some of that McDowell chalk, it's fine. I think Corey LaJoie could contend for a top 25. It's just I prefer McDowell more. And if we're looking at John Hunter Nemechek's numbers this season, he's got an average finish of 19.2, which is inside the top 20. 3 top 20s, 1 top 15, average running position 20.5. I think he's got a little bit of a higher ceiling, but I think they're all fine options down here. But if I had to pick one out of this 5K range, it's going to be Michael McDowell, and it's really not that close. But after John Hunter Nemechek, I will not touch any of these guys. I'm not going to play Timmy Hill, Yaley, Gase, Poole, Hauff, Balicki, Smithley. So below Nemechek, that's as low as I will go. And I do think Nemechek's at a pretty decent price point. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video, guys. Let's see how long it was. It was 44 minutes, that's right around usual. So if you guys made it all the way through, please let me know. I love seeing the guys that make it all the way through. You guys, that's incredible. It's a long video, but I do appreciate everyone watching. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel. Leave a like if you haven't already. And that's pretty much going to be it. Check me out on Patreon if you want. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on IG, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the live stream on Sunday.